Good evening, folks. This is Dave Schmidt. I'm your host here again tonight on the Cosmic Connections program, and this is our August 30th program, and it's always nice to be back. I was gone. I was basically out of state last week, so that's why I was really busy on some stuff there, so that's why I didn't have a program, but it's always good to be back here on the program. But I do have to admit, I'm still adjusting to Blanca not being here, because at this time I'm saying, Blanca, how are you doing on this evening? And she comes in and she makes her comments, but I don't have that anymore. But such a wonderful lady that she was, and she was such an important part of this program for so long, and yes, we do miss her. But all is well for me, and I've been very busy working on some issues, and next week I will not have a program because I'm going to be out of country again next week. It's best that I'm not at liberty to say where I'm going for security issues, but it's a very positive trip that I will be taking next week, because those things continue to develop there over a period of time. So with that, I'm trying to think. I don't have any specific announcements other than the fact that, folks, I've been saying that anybody who wants to extend or expand in the exchange, if you haven't done that, let's say if you've already turned in what was 5 million dong, and you can up it to 10 million dong, anybody can do that. Now, if you've already done that, folks, this is not for you, okay? This is for the people who are at 5 million and they want to expand themselves up to 10 million, or anybody who has been on my list for all the years and you haven't done the expansion yet. You're allowed to do one expansion, and what you need to do is send me an email request. And then what I do from there is that I send you a link which you can make for any credit card payment. And what you're doing, you're paying $312 for an additional 5 million dong that is going to pay out at $1.50 a dong. You've got $310 for the 5 million, and then there's a $2 handling charge in there. So that's what the scoop is on that, okay? So that's the scoop there. I don't have any other specific announcements, but what I wanted to do tonight, folks, I want to share the background and the history about how did I get involved in this? Where did all this come from? I was in conversation with a good friend this last week, and she has said that, Dave, it's probably time for you to share that again, so people get an idea of how did this happen? How did this develop? And where is all this money coming from? And what is about all this gold that's backing up all this currency exchange issues? Well, it was about 9 years ago, when I was living in Sedona, I started doing an internet radio program. And I didn't really know what I was going to talk about, but I did it for my first week. Well, at that time also was when people were starting to, basically invest their dinar through the website, the Dinar Recaps website. And the main guy there that was talking about the dinar was TNT Tony. And he was saying it was going to exchange at $5 a dinar, and then 10. And then he got up to this crazy amount, saying it was going to be $30 to $35 a dinar that it was going to exchange at. And I had about 25 friends, plus myself, that had already purchased our dinar. And at this point, I started saying, this is getting absolutely crazy. Where is TNT Tony coming up with the $1 trillion+ to pay for these thousands of people who have purchased this dinar? Where does that kind of money come from? And the folks there on Dinar Recaps, they never talked about the sources of the money, where the money was going to come from, who was going to pay it, and how were they going to get their money to put into the bank. And what happened again is that I had about 25 friends that were basically involved in this, and they started getting all caught up into it. And TNT Tony was talking about the banks that were going to be involved and how they were going to go be able to take their dinar into the banks and blah blah blah. And I said, this is absolutely crazy, because see, I used to work in the banking industry, and I knew exactly that what he was talking about was not going to happen. So I felt it was best that I wanted to sit down and write a letter explaining to my friends that says, hey, this is absolutely crazy what he's talking about, and it isn't going to happen that way. And as I sit down and started writing, I had this huge wave of inspiration come over me. I ended up writing a full expose on the program, how it works, where the money comes from, and why it wasn't going to happen the way that he was talking about. And what this ended up doing, it ended up being turned into about a 12-page letter. And I sent this to my 25 friends. Well, little did I know that one of them, and I still today don't know who did this, one of them sent it to Dinar Recaps. And that whole 12-page letter got posted on Dinar Recaps. Well, also inside the letter, I had put my email address because I just thought it was going to my friends. And I said, if you've got any questions or any comments, send me an email. Well, little did I know that over the next 3 or 4 days, something like that, I received over 1,000 emails. I thought, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? And that's when I realized that was my program topic. That's what I was going to talk about because the response was so strong. And so I ended up getting about 2,000 to 3,000 people a week that started listening to the program. And I started talking about the currency exchange. And I started addressing the issues of the money. And I said, the only place in the world that I knew at that time that had that kind of money to be able to pay up to $1 trillion in this currency exchange was the Dragon families, who were based out of Hong Kong. I had heard about them, I knew a little bit about them, and I had done a little bit of research on them, but there really was not hardly anything that was out there that was available about them. But I was talking about them on my program. Well, then the next thing you know, and I continued to do the weekly program talking about them and everything, and briefly mentioning that they were the only ones that I knew that had this kind of money to be able to pay for this kind of thing, because who has $1 trillion, plus to pay for all this? Well, the next thing you know, after about 3 or 4 months of doing the program, I ended up getting this email from a man who was representing the ambassador to the Red Dragon. And he said, you have been talking about the Dragon family on your program, and there is a gentleman that is called the ambassador to the Red Dragon of the Dragon family, and he would like to talk to you. Well, that ended up being those that you know from my long past, the ambassador. And so we started conversations. We were talking 2 to 3 times a week, and he started giving me all the history in the background on the Dragon families, who they were, how they had gotten to be where they were, how they got all this massive amount of gold that they have, and how they have kept it entirely secret for a couple thousand years that they had all this, but was saying that this was the time for them to start releasing these funds to humanity. Because see, now in the Dragon families, I've been told there's about 128 different clans. The vast majority of them are benevolent. Now there's a few of them that aren't so good, and they're kind of, the assholes of the Dragon families, if you want to say that. But the ones that are benevolent, they have always said, this gold that we have and that we've had within our family for thousands of years, it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to humanity. And we have just been guardians and caretakers of it to be released at the right appropriate time. And what they said is, this is the time. This is the time, this is the age that this gold will be used as collateral to be releasing funds to people to help create the shift and change that we're going through within our world. As I continued to speak and talk, with the Dragon families, I then asked the ambassador, well, you're always talking about this gentleman called the Red Dragon, and yes, I was able to speak with him 4 or 5 times, on Skype, on the internet. They never showed their faces to me, but I asked them, the ambassador, can I go to Hong Kong and meet him? And they said, absolutely yes. So in December of 2014, I made my first trip to Hong Kong, and I met with this gentleman called the Red Dragon. And when I met with him, he was very gracious and very kind, and he took me in, and he started expounding again about what was going on, and again where they had gotten all this gold and how they'd been caretakers of it for these thousands of years, and this was the time for it to be released. And I had forgotten this for a number of years, but it just came back recently to me again about 6 to 8 months ago. But the man called the Red Dragon, he said, all of us in the dragon family, we all know and understand our family genealogy. We can all trace our genealogy back a couple of thousands of years. And he said, even though that I am Chinese, I am a direct descendant of King David out of the Bible. And my first thought was, how in the world did that happen? Well, then you have to remember there was King David, and then his son was King Solomon. And King Solomon was the man that had scores and scores of wives. Now, what he didn't marry all these women, to have a harem. These wives were primarily daughters or princesses of kings from other kingdoms. And he would meet and talk with these kings, develop a friendship with them, and then take the wife, one of the king's daughters, on as his wife. And the reason was for peacefulness, because you don't go to war with your wife's father. You don't go to war with your wife's father, but you develop very, very good trade relations. And it was over the decades that King Solomon had done this that he acquired this massive amount of wealth and this massive, massive amount of gold. Well, when it came time that he was to be ready to be passing away, he had one primary wife that his basically would be what you call the chief one, the primary one, the one that he was the closest to. And her name was Sheba. And Sheba was from Asia. And when it came time that he knew he was going to be passing away, he passed on the control of all of this gold to Sheba. He passed away. And when that did, she went back to Asia, and she took this massive, massive amount of gold with her back to Asia. And that was the foundation of where the dragon families got a lot of their gold, because she was in the family. She was a part of the family. Well, when I was meeting with the Red Dragon, he said, there's a reason why we are allowing you to come in here and be a part of this and to meet with us. We are basically, it's time for the gold to be released. Auntie Cisa, you said you cannot hear you. That's your problem. It's your internet problem. Everybody else is having problems with me. Nobody else is having problems hearing me. It's in your computer connection if you can't hear me, okay? So, enough of that. Now, the man called the Red Dragon says, we have allowed you to come here, and we have brought you in because there's something that you know that you don't know that we do. Before you came here, we did our background research on you, and we probably know more about you than you know about you. Here's what we can tell you. You are a part of our family line. You have the ancient genealogy of being a part of the dragon family, because you are one of those that can also trace your family genealogy back to King David and King Solomon. And because you're a very distant part of the family, but yet that's why we have allowed you to come in. And you are one of the people that are going to be our spokesperson, and we're going to set up through you the process of being able to release these funds, because it's time for it to be released to humanity. And they basically said, you're the one that we're going to put forward to do this. Now, There might be somebody else, but I am not aware of anybody else anywhere in the world that gets to talk about this gold that comes from the dragon families, this currency exchange that you can come into, and for as little as about $312 become a multi-millionaire. I am the only one that I know of that gets to talk about this live on my radio programs and in the workshops that we do. I don't know anybody else that gets to do that. But my source again comes back to the dragon families, the senior officials that are there, and they're the ones that have said this is what it's for. The reason these funds are being released because they said it's time. It's time for this to be released back to humanity. It's time for these funds to go back to them. And there's another reason is you have to come back and understand who really runs and controls the world's money supply. It's known as, we call them the cabal. They're also known as the Khazarian Mafia. They have been the dominant controllers of the world's money supply. With these funds, when it's time for them to be released, when the dragon families wanted to release this money, it started with what was called the original Bretton Woods Agreement right after World War II. In that, they realized that the countries were too corrupt and the banks were too corrupt, so they couldn't trust that process to get this money out to the people. Then the second attempt was when President Sukarno of Indonesia, who was a dragon family member, had an agreement with President Kennedy to release these funds. That was going to be the next attempt. Well, again, the massive corruption came in and that was stopped. And that's when the families realized, how do we release these hundreds of billions of dollars out to humanity to benefit the complete global financial picture? And that's when they realized what the cabal can't stop is turning scores of millions of people into overnight millionaires, giving them the money and telling them, go spend it. They can't stop that. And when you've got 60 to 80,000 people becoming overnight millionaires and being told, go spend this money, it is going to totally shift the power of the global economy. And that's this purpose. It's not really about us. It's about the bigger picture of what this does to the whole world political and financial picture, but we are the ones that get to be the tools to do this process. Now, my understanding is this is going to go on for some time. This is going to go on for some decades, and this is just the first step of the process. Those of us that are involved here in the release of us. Now, I've said this many, many, many times. I have absolutely no idea when the funds are going to be released, and the funders will never pre-announce the release of the funds for security reasons. But what you hear me talk about, I don't work with the dragon families that much anymore. They were the original source of the information of where the money originally came from. But my understanding is they were some of the original funders of what I always refer to as the Texas Processing Office. In past years, when you sent Dong currency to me, I sent it to the Texas Processing Office, who would collect it. And then I would set up an account with you, so you have an account with me as a broker through the Texas Processing Office. Now, this processing office would collect the Dong currency from all around the country, if not all around the world, and then periodically they would put it on a private jet and then they would fly it to Hong Kong where the money is registered. And because the bank that took in all this currency and had all the funds to pay us was in Hong Kong. Now, but what they've done, they have since moved the funds out of the Hong Kong bank. It was about 2 or 3 years ago, Hong Kong started having a lot of tension issues with China. And you have to remember, Hong Kong is a part of China. China can come into Hong Kong and do whatever they want. They could come in and shut all those banks down, and then all of our money would be locked up. So the funders felt it was best to move the money out of Hong Kong, and they say it's now placed in multiple Western banks here in the Western countries of where it is. The money is there. It's in this Texas processing office. My brokers have seen the money in the bank accounts, and they are just waiting for the appropriate people to release the funds. It's important to understand that this much money being released has a massive impact on global finances and global politics. So those are the issues predicating when the funds will be released. And don't ask me what they are, because I have absolutely no idea, and I don't know anybody who does know what the issues are for the funds to be released. But we do know that it's going to happen. Everything. You know, when I first started into this, I was thinking, is this really for real? Can this really be happening? Is this really taking place? And folks, over the first 3 to 5 years, I kept doing my homework and doing my homework and doing my homework to be able to verify that this program is real, the currency exchange is real, and the money is real. So when you come into me and bring into the program, that's what you're doing. Now, it used to be I would collect the physical currency and then send it to the processing office. Well, what happened is the processing office ended up having this massive surplus of dong. So what they're doing now, instead of asking you to go out and buy it from somewhere, whether it's at a bank, off Amazon or something like that, and send it to them, we're actually buying it from them, and it's coming through me. So you're basically sending me the $312, and then what I do is that I then acquire the 5 million dong, and I place that into your account, so you have an account with me through the Texas processing office. Now, it's important to understand this is a private contract exchange, which means you're not going to be able to go out there and find out anything about it, and you're not going to be able to go through anybody else unless you have another broker somewhere that's in touch with the Texas processing office. Unless you have that, I'm your source, folks, to be able to get this done. But you have the opportunity to do this and to be a part of this and come into it and to be able to be a part of this massive shift and change that's going on for us here in humanity. So that's the background and the history of how I got involved in this. And I've been involved in this now for, let's see, about 9.5 years is how much it is approaching. I've done right around 120 workshops. Now, for the most part, other than the one I did recently in Boston, I took a break from the workshops, but I'm going to start them back up again in October. And I've got a lot of new information, folks. For those of you who have been to the workshops in the past, you're going to find about 30 to maybe 35% of my information is new. The format is still basically the same. You know, I should say the three, I have the 3 sections, the 3 parts, and yes, they are still what the same, but there's a lot of new good information in there. And when I had the one in Boston a couple of weeks ago, the people who hadn't been to one for a couple of years and says, wow, this is absolutely great, the new information that you have. So that's nice to know for you folks that I will be starting them up. Now, tentatively, I plan on doing the first one in Denver the first Saturday in October. So we're looking at about 5 to 6 weeks out of when I will be starting the workshops up again. And the first one is going to be in Denver. And then I will follow up on that after that. And also remember, I always post on my website when I do the workshops. Now, Susan says, do I ever do a workshop in the South? Oh, of course I do. I do them in Orlando, I do them in Atlanta, and I do them in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Charlotte will probably be the second one, okay? And what I try to do, I try to kind of go from, like, you know, eastern United States to western to central. So I'm not doing 2 of them kind of close to each other is what I try to do, because a lot of people travel and some even fly into the workshops, and they're all day events. We start at about 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we're done at about 4:30 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon is what they are, okay? So, now, that's what I have to share tonight. Now, folks, if any of you have any questions or comments, you can call in through Blog Talk Radio. And the number there is 515-605-9356. Again, the number is 515-605-9356. You press 1 on your touch-tone phone. That lets me know that you would like to come in and come on the air. So now I know there's about a 12 to 15 second delay from the time that I say that till the time that you folks hear it on Blog Talk. And Facebook is a little more quicker, but there is a slight delay that's in that. So I'm going to give us about another maybe about 20 to 30 seconds, and we'll see if anybody is wanting to come in. And we've been going for, let's see, we're approaching pretty close to a half hour, and I usually like to keep the programs at about 30 to 35 minutes so they're not too long. And tonight's program is a great reference program. This is a program that you can share with friends or family if they want to know what is this currency exchange all about and where did all this money come from. Because it starts first from the gold from the dragon families that they acquired thousands of years ago, and then it has been moved into what is called the Texas Processing Office, and it's there that we have accounts with them for those that are in the exchange, and they will be the ones that will be releasing the funds to us when the time is right. And I can tell you again, nobody knows when that is. So I do have one person that wants to call in, and from area code 336. So we will go to you, area code 336. Let's see, I am trying to bring you up. Why are you not working? Okay. Let's see here. Let's try this again now. I don't know. I'm trying to click on you, area code 336, trying to bring you in. And that didn't work. Now let's come back to here again. There we go. Area code 336. No, you're still not on the air. I don't know why it's not letting you come on. Come on. I have no idea. Well, somewhere here my Blog Talk Radio isn't working correctly because I'm trying to bring you on the air. Let's see. No, I don't know why it's not working. I am clicking and clicking and clicking and it's not working. So let's do this. If somebody else would like to come in first, maybe we might want to try that person first, because yes, area code 336, I see that you've what's called raised your hand that you would like to. I don't know why it's not coming out. It's not letting you come on the air. So I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. I've done everything I know how to do. Okay. Anybody else? Any comments? A couple of you have asked about Nashville. Yes, I will be eventually doing a workshop in Nashville. And then Rich, no, there's no new developments on the credit union. I won't even be starting on that until I know I've got appropriate funding. I got to have the funding first before I can even start on the credit union process. And my understanding is that's going to take some months to get that done. Now, that is, though, one of the issues about my traveling to Africa. There is a possibility that I can get some of the funding out of that trip. It says, does our exchange related directly and indirectly related to the BRICS? No, it has absolutely nothing to do with the BRICS or anybody else. You have to remember, this is a complete independent program that has nothing to do with countries or banks. This is an independent program that is just this and nothing else, and it's not related to anything else other than our own private contracts of the currency exchange. Okay? All right. If there's And folks, if you want to bring up any other questions, you can always, type them in there on Facebook, and I usually try to address those fairly quickly after they come up. So, but I think looks like we're probably getting ready to be done tonight. So I think with that, I think I'm ready to call it an evening. And folks, again, it's always nice to be here with you. Now, I will be gone next week. I won't be here next week. So it'll be at least 2 weeks before I do another program. So I hope everybody well. And this lady asked, why is the dong needed for this to happen? We are already in your program. The dong is the currency that is used in this currency exchange. If you are already in the program, well, first of all, if you haven't turned any dong currency into me or purchased it from me, you're not in this program, folks. You can be on a list, but that doesn't mean you're in the program until you have actually turned in dong to me or purchased dong from me. Okay, so that's for the comment, or the person who had the comments about, why do you need the dong? You're not it. You can be on my list, but that doesn't mean you're in the program if you have not actually purchased dong from me or turned in dong currency to me. Okay? All right. We're going to try 334 one more time. It's still not coming up. I'm sorry, area code 334. I don't know why. So I think we're ready to call it an evening because we've been just a little over a half hour. So folks, we'll see you next week. And thanks again for joining us. Okay? All right. Okay. Bye-bye.